be trained up to date on everything. Well, the pilot crashed in February in Buffalo. May not have been the case. We know 50 people died, and sources close to the investigation tell the Associated Press that, one, he did not have hands-on training with a critical safety system aboard the plane, nor was he required to by the FAA, and two, he failed several test rides and aircraft simulators over the course of his career. Now, Colgan Air Flight 3407 fell short of the airport, crashed into a house. All 49 people on board, including one man in the house, died. It seems, as you look at this, the initial findings here could have been prevented. Let's bring our experts in on this. Joining me now to talk about it, criminal defense attorney Fred Teesey is an aviation law expert. Also with us on the phone, Mary Schiavo, former inspector general for the U.S. Department of Transportation. Mary, let's start with you. Mary, from what you're seeing, should this guy have been flying this?
No, absolutely not. Because not just because he failed the check rides, because the check rides are kind of like Pennsylvania driver's test. You can just keep taking it until you pass. But because the critical training, including stall recovery, not just on this kind of plane, but with this equipment and under these conditions, was not performed. Just because they meet the FAA minimums does not mean that you have done the maximum amount of training and really had the maximum experience that you need to have on the equipment. Airlines need to remember the FAA prescribes minimums.
Okay. Fred, you seen this the same way?
Yeah, I do, Mike. Mary's right. The FAA sets a floor. You can always do more. If it turns out that this guy was not properly trained, if it turns out that he had failed a bunch of check rides, if it turns out he only had 109 hours of type as pilot in command, that's going to create a serious problem, and this could be the making of a very serious lawsuit. Okay.
Well, let's get the statement out there from Colgan Air. They say this: Colgan Air's FAA-approved training program does provide comprehensive training on the stall warning system, including the stick shaker and stick pusher during initial Q400 ground school as well as annual recurrent ground school. Note here that a stick pusher demonstration in an aircraft simulator is not required by the FAA. A lot of aviation speak there. Mary, can you boil it down for us? What are they saying there?
Well, they're saying they've done all that was required by the FAA, including a little more, and that he had some training on the stick shaker and stick pusher. And what that means is if your airspeed falls below the critical amount, and in this case it fell dramatically below the critical amount of airspeed that you need, and it seemed like the pilot was distracted. He almost didn't seem to notice it. And so they said they've had all that training, but on this aircraft there's an anomaly. There's a little switch, and it's called a reference speed switch, and once that is switched on, and it was in this case, it changes all your airspeed. You actually get a stick pusher, meaning it's a stall warning, 20 knots before you're expecting it. He might not have been trained on that.
Fred, so you mentioned it. We're going to take a quick break here and come back with more on this. What about a lawsuit? It sounds like the grounds are there for one.
Yeah, well, it does. Mike, the first thing they teach in pilot school is that when there's an accident, you're the first one there. And, it's a very, very unfortunate, but like any accident, it's always a series of things. This guy had some serious flight and duty time issues. There may have been some issues. The co-pilot may have had a cold. He may not have been properly trained, and Mary's right. He pulled back. He thought the back of the airplane has a tail which will get ice before the main wing will, and if that ice is up, he pulled back, which would aggravate if it was the wings having a problem. So, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Okay. Coming up more on this topic, and should we be worried? Is this going on, or all of